What in the world? Well, hello, little note card nerd. Did you fall into your file box? Let me get you out of there. Whew, well, that's better. Hello, anti-novelists and friends. I'm glad I got you out of there. Who says that file boxes can't be dangerous? So, I wanted to give you an update on this project of using the Zettelkasten to edit my novel. So, remember the big, gnarly pile of note cards that I had? Well, check this out. I'm so excited. Check it out. So I have all of those note cards now sorted and organized. You may recognize this front section as the bones of my plot box. And this back section are all of the note cards that were just in total disarray. So now I have this lovely little box that is ready to rock and roll. I also want to show you a little trick. If you need to mark a place in a note box, or if you just want cards to stand up, because like let's just say that you don't have it very full yet, check this out. You just take a rubber band and you rubber band around the box, and then see, you've got a nice place for your cards to live so that it holds them all up together. So there's that. That's note box number 1 completed. I also have all of my binders sorted and organized. These are in order. This one is one of the most recent that I finished. You'll see it's a grid that documents the timeline as I finally finished it out for the novel project. So this is bound on Happy Planner discs, and it's obviously landscape, not portrait. Then I have collected a few items that I'll be using in the course that I'm teaching. So I literally take you through the very first iteration of my outlines and plot grids and how those turned into essentially a document, and then how those turned into these crazy big format timelines that allowed me to basically see my story. And then those ultimately became, which I showed you this in the last video, the master tracker that gave me all of the acts so that I could start filling in my plot points and the action of the story. So yeah, I have really good progress on just getting those early iterations of my plot together, how I did it, what form it took, and going forward from here, how I want them to look. So then the next thing that I'll show you is I have built out the bones of what will become my time box for this novel. So the place that I'm at now is I need to take the finished draft and I need to start running it through a system of timelines so that I can make sure that my plot points line up, that my story beats and my story progress is paced nicely, that I'm revealing discoveries and the reader can make discoveries on their own over the course of the narrative. So this edit is really about pacing. It's about identifying key markers, and it's about making sure that the things that I opened in the beginning of the story in terms of story threads are paid off in the end of the story. And it's the time box in the Zettelkasten that helps figure all of those things out. So what am I doing next? For the rest of today, I am going to finish building out my time box, and I'm going to start working on some pacing elements, particularly in regards to history. Because here's the thing. Too often as writers, we know what we want to say. We know where we want the story to go, but the wheels come off the cart when you start trying to stack and layer those different elements. Because what if you have a section of the story that takes place in the past, which I do. I have a piece of my story that takes place in 1987. The primary narrative of the story takes place in 2019. So I've got 2 timelines layered up against each other, and I needed to make a decision about how to move back and forth between those timelines. Well, the decision that I made was, rather than splice that past timeline up and layer it like a sandwich in between the current narrative, I'm going to publish that 1987 story piece as a novella. So I jettisoned the whole idea of trying to sandwich it in to my linear plot structure, and instead it will stand on its own. So these are the kinds of choices that the time box helps you make. But because the time box helps you unpack the pieces of the narrative so that you know how you want to unfold it, how you want the reader to make discoveries, and where you want your major markers and beats to be located along that linear timeline. So just a quick sneak preview. Let's take a look at my notes for creating backward time markers. Now, those of you who have ordered my book at victoriacrowder.com were given an opportunity to subscribe to my physical monthly newsletter. The reason I mention that is because my videos follow the structures of my newsletter. So it is no accident that I am talking about backwards facing time and temporal disturbances in this video, because number one, that information is expanded on in my monthly newsletter that will come out in April. And number two, it's also part of the time box course for Zettelkasten, which I'm currently creating. So I'm bringing you along on this whole crazy ride. And number three, this is information that I need to be super intimately familiar with as I proceed along on this developmental edit, because just like I figured out, I don't want to sandwich in the 1987 pieces. I want 1987 to stand on its own as a novella. I do have flashbacks, back shadows, side shadows, different elements that happen out of the real story time that need to be included. And so the third leg of this table is I need to refamiliarize myself with these pacing elements that allow narrative development so that I can dial in how I want to pace those flashbacks, side shadows, and so forth in my story as I'm editing it now. So just a quick overview. For the past, you have several kinds of history. So in my newsletter next month, as well as in the larger section of this course where we go deep dive, I'm walking you through things like memories, things like factual information, things like untrue information, theoretical information, all of those elements of historical stuff that takes place in your story or that could take place. And how are you using those elements? What do those look like in your story so that you're conveying that information from the past to your reader? That's what the Zettelkasten time box is going to help you figure out, because first it lines things out in a linear form, and then it helps you splice and dice and layer so that it's a satisfying journey for the reader. So secondly, we have future-facing things, and it follows basically the same structure. Rather than memories, you have wishful future thinking. You have feared futures. You have planned futures. So there's a lot of different elements that you can dip into in order to make a decision about how you want the reader to experience your story. And then obviously we have the present. So that's just the present linear time in which the story unfolds. So that's what I'm digging into today, is history facing backward, future facing forward, and weaving the present story in a linear fashion so that you have those bare bones that you then use to hang the rest of the narrative on as you break it up into chapters and scenes. So that's where we are. I'm going to leave you there today. This will be a shorter look inside. I'm going to continue chugging along. I have not yet wrangled this guy. You may remember my traveler's journal, where I've been collecting note cards, ideas, thoughts, what have you, for about the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. I will still need to process this over into that nice new file box that has all of my cards put away and filed in it. So yes, that is a satellite box. Often, because I like to move around when I write, instead of pulling out my great big Wilma drawers from my proper Zettelkasten, which are quite large and heavy, instead I'll just use a little satellite box And I can use this to put together the items that I'm working with directly. And then once everything is in order, I can sit on the couch with it. I can sit on the front porch with it. It's just a nice, easy satellite system. Then I can take all of those note cards out. I will put them into the drawer in the main Zettelkasten where they actually belong. And then I can use my satellite box to work on another project or another idea. So that's where we're at. With all that, I am so glad that I rescued you out of that file box. Now, do me a favor and please try not to fall down in there again, because if I don't come along and find you and fish you out, you may just stay lost in the bottom of your file box. So stay frosty, my friends. Be careful and get ready to get your writing done, because I am so freaking excited about how this is unraveling. It's really coming along. And even as a surprise to myself, it's helping me get my writing done and it's helping me get this edit completed. So yeah, the next steps, I will keep on rolling and create my outline. I'm going to print out a new outline that I will use to guide the next steps in this process. And the next time I jump back on, I will show you what all that looks like. So stay anti-novelist, and I will see you next time.